Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Phaseplant 1.8. Man, there's so much cool stuff that's happening within this right now. We're going to go ahead and cover a lot of things that are within this, but first of all, I just want to give out a big thanks to Kilohearts for making this video possible and for letting me cover their product yet again. So the big news. Multipass and snapheap are now available within Phaseplant, and you can also use them within themselves, and that is pretty much just unlimited crazy routing. If you own Phaseplant, you know what this means. If you don't own Phaseplant, basically Multipass is a separate plugin that is also from Kilohearts that allows multi-band frequency splitting, that you can stack effects on each band, and you can have up to 5 different bands, and then you also have pre and post effects, and you have LFOs and all that stuff. But the fact that you can have an instance of this within a Phaseplant patch is just mind-blowing. That is so cool. And this is important too, because if you have these kinds of ideas or you have these kinds of chains that you want it to be within the synth itself, you never have to leave the box. The other thing too is that the modulation possibilities are just I'm giggling and screaming inside. So besides that, there's a bunch of updates that we're going to go ahead and kind of have a quick overlook over. This patch will be available probably somewhere for free later down the line. I don't know where yet, but I'm going to kind of come out of this and let's go ahead and just kind of read off on the list of updates that Phaseplant has recently come out with. They haven't released everything that they had talked about on their live stream quite yet, but I know that it's on the way, and this just makes me all the more excited for that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. This is a full list of the patch notes or the release notes that were released in Kilohearts 1.8 updates. So snapheap and multipass can now themselves be added as snap-ins, making it possible to do very complex nested effect structures. That's kind of the first thing that we covered, hence why I wanted to show you kind of like a cool little neuro-based thing. Totally reworked preset browsing. It's just kind of been revamped a little bit. It's nothing too crazy. There is one cool feature that we'll kind of cover regarding the browsing features, and that's with the wavetable thing that we'll take a look at in a second, but we've got some new presets on here as well. Not sure what all the new stuff is exactly. I haven't gone through everything, but it's just a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier to kind of look at. And if you haven't noticed already, the user interface has kind of just been cleaned up a little bit. It has a little bit more saturated tonality, in my opinion. Multiple user preset folders, which is pretty important, especially if you want to be able to kind of throw everything into like a base folder or a lead folder, and that previously wasn't available. We have a preset search, so if you find something and you know that you like it, you know the name of it, you can just type that in and go find it, which is pretty nice. You have proper preset browsing in the snap-ins, so beforehand, like finding those were kind of iffy. Now I think that user interface has been improved a bit. Better save dialog. It's now possible to select a default preset, so if you have something that you're used to working and you want to save that as your default, you can now do that. New and improved top bar in all plugins. Everything has kind of just been reworked and, you know, kind of made a little bit more pretty. Improved preset loading speed, can't argue about that. Curated and sorted factory presets for snapheap and multipass. So everything was kind of tweaked a bit to make this optimal for, I think, Phaseplant in itself. This is a big one. Fix for keyboard not being forwarded to the DAW when a sub window had focused. So previously, if you had a window up, like let's say a slice EQ or something, whenever this window would be up, you weren't able to press notes on it, and it was a bug. So now everything works, and that is such a big deal. Like, this is a huge thing that bothered a lot of us, and Kilohearts really did an amazing job turning that around for us. Next up, we've got fixed automation not being smooth when large buffer sizes are being used. That never really affected me, but that's good to know if you guys are using stuff on maybe not so good hardware. Fixed a problem that made it impossible to enter a parameter value via keyboard in the pop-up when the parameter was modulated. So there's kind of some things on here that I'm going to read off, but I'm going to kind of cover that now. The tweaking of knobs and drawing on LFOs have been improved massively. It's so much more accurate now, and it's very easy to just click in something and kind of get in and move something where I want it to be, and then you can also turn on the magnetic function. But drawing LFOs on this has just become much more of a breeze. And then also defining values. If I drag down, it drags down. If I drag up, it drags up. No kind of weird, strange movement or drawing them from parameters. So that's really awesome fix. A lot of really good quality of life stuff in here. So yeah, onto the Phaseplant. 80 new factory presets that you can search for #new in the preset browser to find them all. I won't spoil that for you guys. You can go take a look for yourself. The sample and wavetable wavetable browsing now uses a new content browser. This is freaking cool. Now, whenever you have a wavetable pulled up, oh my gosh, look at this. This is just beautiful. You can even save these as favorites if you want, but it gives you a picture of what these wavetables look like, so you kind of have an idea of what you do before you load. And it's also neat because it makes it a lot easier to add new locations, or if you download stuff, like I'm releasing some stuff soon. I know that I put some stuff out on Patreon. You can kind of just leave that as a folder and have these kind of quote unquote wavetables that are easier to access. Good job, Kilohearts. You can also do a list as well as thumbnails. Now the LFO shapes can be saved and loaded using the new content browser. So if you have an LFO that you like, then you can save that and start to, I guess, recall that if you have done that from before. The filter and distortion generator effects now have better visualization. So I kind of mentioned that before. Everything kind of has a more updated look. The filter generator effects now has a slope control. So what that means is on a filter, let's just go ahead and pull one up, you now have the ability to change slopes. So this is at a ×1, and then we can pull this all the way up to 6. That's pretty nice. I'm not really sure how many pulls that reflects. It doesn't matter. The slope is really more important anyways that you can look at, but that's a nice feature because sometimes within these filters they're a little bit too basic. Like maybe you wanted a really thin band pass, maybe you wanted to kind of pull up the resonance of the notch and make that super wide. Like this is something I would use, definitely. Or even, can you automate this? Okay, you can't automate it, but that's okay. It's still nice to have. So next up we've got distortion generator effects. Now has a new distortion mode called Quantize. We can now kind of take a look at that, where we add a distortion unit, and that was right here. So let's listen to this patch without it. Actually, let's turn all of these off, and we'll just listen to this detune saw wave. And Quantize on. That's pretty interesting. If you know what a quantized distortion does, then you kind of know what to expect through this. I'm not going to go into that in detail because there's too much to cover, but it's nice to know that we have another means of distortion. To me, you can never have too many distortion types. Next up, we've got added visualization to filter and distortion effects modules. So again, improved user interface, improved grid control in the Lfo Editor. We kind of covered that. We have new Lfo Editor tools. So we have a step draw mode, which is non-curved lines to create like a step sequencer. And then we also have the curved so that we can create like our typical Lfo shapes. We changed the legato behavior. Adjacent notes are now considered to be separate rather than being played legato. Adjusted the layout of the add modulator pop-up to be consistent with the same pop-up for generators and snap-ins. We fixed a crash when adding audio rate modulations to a sampler while playing a note. I've never had that crash before, but awesome fix. We fixed samples sometimes not playing after loading a preset. Again, that's never happened to me, but good to know. Fixed a root and loop settings not updating as they should when loading samples. And then finally, we fixed old sample playing at the wrong pitch for a split second when browsing samples. Again, with these, I've never encountered these, but it means that I most likely won't, so glad to know that that's fixed. There's new slope control, which we cover, new distortion mode. On the carve EQ, there's a new visual style with better controls in the snap-in mode. On the slice EQ, there's also a new visual style, and the global frequency offset now makes it easier to modulate the whole EQ like a curve filter, or EQ curve like a filter. Yay. Fixed jittery knob drag. Thank you. Fixed graphical glitches, improved user interface, fixed plugins, falling AUV, Al on older macOS versions. I'm not really sure what that means, to be honest, but okay. Now Windows, we fixed a problem with drag and drop on the DPI screens, and we fixed a problem where the window got focused after a pop-up window was removed. So other than that, those are the entire patch notes, and let's just kind of have some closing thoughts. So basically, you have unlimited effects with this, and not only that, but essentially Multipass serves as a frequency splitter that you can use inside of Phaseplant, and you can do that multiple times. This brings a modular approach to this because I would do something typical like this outside of Phaseplant, where I would add some kind of effects layer of like multi-band effects where I have something in high and low. But with Multipass, you have up to 5 bands, so you can do an incredibly large amount of processing before you even start doing something out of this. Now, you could always frequency split within this on its own, but you'd have to send something to lane 1, lane 2, and then up to lane 3. But having this available means that you can still send everything to lane 1, so it kind of streamlines everything. You can literally have one instance of Multipass up and then do all of your processing on that, and then have something come on the outside, but you're still working within Phaseplant. You never have to close this window. And to me, that's one of the biggest things. One other thing, which I'm sure I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, is that whenever you look at the saturation, or I'm sorry, the distortion on this, you can actually see the curves or the distortion types over here. And I thought that was a nice little touch whenever we kind of look at that. But yeah, I mean, you guys, like, you have no idea how amazing this is going to be. There's two things that I still really want from Kilohearts. That would include a multiband compressor, which they've already kind of talked about coming out with, or some kind of like soft clipper, something that will, you know, kind of chop the tops off. And then a multi-stage envelope for Multipass would just be amazing. This is kind of randomized right here, but it's still not quite the same that I'm looking for. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Like, this is a huge update, and I hope that you guys kind of find this to be useful. You can definitely expect me to be coming out with some patches in the future. Kilohearts, thank you guys, man. You guys are really pushing the genre forward for sound design nerds like me. I am looking forward to you guys' next update. Thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to check out my social media. If you guys didn't know already, I've launched my website where I have some of my own Phaseplant presets up for sale. I've got some other things as well, and some other cool stuff that's coming out in the future. I've also got a Patreon up if you'd like to have some of that extra content as well. But that's all I got for you guys. Happy producing.